everyone, it's Alice, and today we have got some classics to talk about. Now, the reason for this video is that I took a look at my reading spreadsheet, because yes, I have one of those, and I saw that I haven't read a lot of classics this year. I've read like 2, and they were kind of by accident. And I have like vague goals about reading more classics, and I'd like to read more of them, but I'm really bad at prioritizing them. And I just have a tendency to get distracted by other newer, shinier books. I thought maybe doing a video about some of the shorter classics on my TBR would inspire me to pick some of them up before the end of the year, which is not that far away. We've got some time, and I feel like I should be able to squeeze in a couple of these like shorter ones. So I have some to show you. I have a lot of classics on my shelves that I need to read, but these are some of the shortest. And just a side note, no one needs to read classics if you don't want to. Even like having something called classics is like a little weird, like what even is a classic? But I like reading them, and I just want to prioritize them a little bit more and get a couple more in before the new year rolls around. The first books that I have are these little penguin cloth-bound classics, which are so pretty, so beautiful. I love seeing these on my shelves, and all of these are relatively new to me, and I actually haven't read any of them, and I should. First up, we have got Street Haunting by Virginia Woolf, which I'm pretty sure doesn't just contain the essay Street Haunting, but also some other things. Yes, it does. I don't think I've read any of them, but the one called Street Haunting is about like Virginia Woolf walking around London a wintry evening, and I'm sure because of her like stream of consciousness writing style, it's gonna be really good, but it's also gonna include a lot of other like themes. I've read and liked several of Virginia Woolf's books, especially Mrs. Dalloway, like that's my favorite by her. And usually I don't really go for that like stream of consciousness writing, but for some reason with Virginia Woolf it really works for me, and I think it works especially well in a slightly shorter format, at least for me. So reading these essays I think is going to be great. The second one I've got is The Lottery by Shirley Jackson, and again, I'm pretty sure this collection contains more. It actually contains quite a lot of short stories, I think these are, and I don't think that I've read any of them, but the one that I'm the most interested in is The Lottery, which I think is her most famous short story. And all I really know about that story is that it's set in a small American town, and they have like an annual tradition of having this lottery that everyone in the town has to participate in, but no one wants to win. I'm actually really excited to read it because somehow, even though I know that this is a short story that is very famous and a lot of people read it for school and stuff, I actually don't know what goes on in that story. And sometimes with like more famous works, you kind of get the gist, you just sort of pick it up. But with this, I don't actually know. I just know that it's quite dark and twisted, and that's very exciting. Now that I'm looking at the contents of this though, I'm definitely going to read all of these, I think, but I'm especially intrigued by the one called The Witch, which obviously I always love stories about witches. And there's also one called The Demon Lover and The Very Strange House Next Door. Sounds very intriguing. Then we have The Masque of the Red Death by Edgar Allan Poe, and this again contains several stories like The Fall of the House of Usher, which I've read, and also The Telltale Heart, which is my favorite story by Poe. And the one that I'm the most interested in reading is The Masque of the Red Death, because I can't actually remember if I've read it, but I did read, I think, everything by Edgar Allan Poe in my teens, because I had like an emo phase and I was like really into Poe, but I don't remember anything from the story, so it's gonna feel new to me, I think. I do really like his stories though, like I love how gothic they are, and I like a lot of the themes that he brings up, so I'm probably gonna read all of the stories in here when I read The Masque of the Red Death, just because I think revisiting them is gonna be fun. Next, we have one that I'm pretty sure is just one story, so it's a novella. It's Bonjour, Tristesse, which I just want to read because I've heard a lot of good things, and I know that when it came out in the 1950s, it was really scandalous, and it's always interesting to read those kinds of books now. It's set in the French Riviera, and we meet a daughter and a father who spends their time worshipping like the idea of free love and fast cars, and they're living quite the life. But all of that comes to an end when the father decides to marry some woman, and that like changes everything, I guess. It sounds interesting, and I've just heard a lot of people talk about this, and I'm intrigued to read it myself and see what I think. It's also translated from French, which is always cool because I'm always trying to read more translated works. Then we're back to short stories with The Star Child by Oscar Wilde. And I got this book just because I want to read more by Oscar Wilde. I read The Picture of Dorian Gray either this year or last year, and I really liked it, and I would like to read some more of his stuff. I'm pretty sure this sort of veers into like fables and fairy tale land, and that's not what I thought it was going to be. I don't know what I expected, but I just didn't expect that. But that actually makes me even more excited to read this. And I haven't read any of the stories in here, so it's all gonna be new to me. Another translated one that I have is Cosmicomics by Italo Calvino, and I got this purely because I want to read more by Calvino. I read a short story collection called Under the Jaguar Sun like a couple of years ago, and I really liked the writing, and I liked the vibe of it, so I would like to read some more. The collection that I read was all about the census, whereas this one is like about the evolution of the universe or something, which sounds a little bit out there, but it also sounds very interesting because I usually like those kinds of things. And I think with Calvino's writing style, it's going to be very interesting to read. Moving away from those beautiful cloth-bound classics though, we have this, which is also beautiful. This is The Crucible by Arthur Miller. And I'm pretty sure this is a play. And I haven't read a lot of plays, so I don't know how I'm gonna get on with this. But this is one of those books that I would like to read to sort of check off my list and see what I think of it. It's a dramatized and at least partially fictionalized version of like a story from the Salem witch trials in the 1600s, I'm pretty sure. And I think that this was written as a commentary on communists being persecuted in the US after the war. How much of that I'm gonna get, I have no idea. I just want to give this a go and see what I think. Like I mentioned, haven't read a lot of plays, and I don't really know if I'm gonna get on with the fact that it is a play, but I'm just gonna give it a go and we'll see. I gotta mention, I love this little penguin in the cauldron on the front. I think it's so cute. And it's interesting that I think it's so cute because I don't really think that this is a cute story. Then I have two of these small novellas, and I have more of these on my shelves, some of which I've read and some of which I haven't. But I picked out these two because these are the ones that I would like to read first. We have Mathilda by Mary Shelley, and I kind of just want to read this because it's Mary Shelley and I really like Frankenstein, and Frankenstein is the only thing that I've ever read by her, and I just think it could be interesting to read something else. I am a little bit apprehensive about this as well though, because the story is about a daughter and her father and like their relationship, and I think that the father crosses a pretty significant line in the relationship. It's a little bit like, I don't know. It sounds quite disturbing, and I am pretty sure that it's at least speculated that some of this is based on Mary Shelley's own experience in life, which makes it even more horrifying, but I do think it could be interesting to read. Interesting and disturbing. The second one I have is The Eternal Husband by Fyodor Dostoyevsky, and I've just heard that this is good. I don't really know. It's about this man who one evening there's a knock on his door and he opens it and he stands face to face with his former lover's husband. And they end up like talking to each other, but it's not clear if the husband knows that they had an affair. And apparently this conversation is like very interesting. I don't know. I'm gonna give it a go. I'm hoping that it's not just two guys sitting and chatting, but maybe it is and maybe it works. I don't know. Then I have a couple of these cool looking books. We have The Graveyard, which is set in communist Poland, and we meet this character who unthinkingly one night insults a police officer, and this is like taken as criticism against the government, and because of that he's expelled from the party, and the story is about him trying to reintegrate himself into the party, but in doing that he like meets some dark underworld or something, which I'm assuming is like the opposition. This first came out in the 50s, and I'm pretty sure that when this author gave it to his publisher, they didn't want to publish it. I'm assuming because it was in the 50s and the Soviet Union was a thing, and this is obviously, I'm guessing, a criticism of like communism. I don't think Poland was a part of the USSR, I'm pretty sure, but they were kind of like a satellite state. I'm noticing when I'm talking about this, I don't know enough about this at all, so I'll probably look into it a little bit before I read this. But I do think it's going to be an interesting read. The other one I have is Where There's Love, There's Hate. And this is surprisingly a mystery. I think I knew that when I got this book, but I'd forgotten. But it's set in Argentina at the seaside resort, and we meet this physician and kind of like a busybody who ends up like appointing himself the leader of an investigation when a young translator is found dead at this place. I really don't know what to expect from this, but apparently it's quite witty, and I do think that it's a skill to be able to pull off a mystery in this short a format, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but it'll be interesting to see. Lastly, we have one that is probably the longest out of the bunch, but it's still pretty short. It's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick. And this is actually science fiction, and it's the book that the movie Blade Runner is based on. I haven't actually seen Blade Runner, which is maybe a little bit sacrilegious, but I don't know, I just never got around to watching it. And now that I have this book, I want to read the book before I watch the movie, if I watch the movie. All I really know about the story is that it's about these, I don't know if they're bounty hunters or police, but they're tasked with hunting down these androids that have been outlawed on Earth. I think I know a little bit about what goes on in this book, but not a lot, so it'll be interesting to read. And I have read another book by this author, and it was very interesting and very trippy, so it'll be interesting to see what this has to offer and if it's weird. Like the other book that I read by this author was really, really weird. I don't know how weird this is, but I'll read it and I'll find out. Okay, everyone. Those are all the books that I had to show you today, though. I do have more short classics on my TBR, but I picked out the ones that I'm the most intrigued by right now, and I'm gonna at least take some of them and I think put somewhere where I can see them because I think I just forget to pick them up sometimes, and putting them like on my nightstand or something, I think that might help. I'd love to know if you've read any of the books that I mentioned though and what you've thought, and if you have any short classic recommendations, I would love to hear about that. As always, thank you very much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you soon. Bye!